ladies and gentlemen. Let me begin with something that might make you raise an eyebrow. Stop being nice to everyone. Yes, you heard me right. Now, before you misinterpret that, let me clarify. I am not asking you to be rude, cold, or disrespectful. I am not encouraging cruelty or arrogance. What I'm saying is this: stop sacrificing yourself, your time, your values, and your peace just to please everyone around you. We live in a world where being nice has been misunderstood. People confuse being nice with being a doormat. They think kindness means constant agreement, nonstop availability, and swallowing your own needs so others can feel comfortable. That's not kindness, that's self-erasure. Being nice to everyone often means saying yes when your soul screams no. It means tolerating disrespect, accepting mediocrity, and avoiding confrontation, not out of peace, but out of fear. Ask yourself, how many times have you stayed quiet when you should have spoken up? How many times have you helped someone who never helped you back just so you wouldn't look selfish? How many dreams have you delayed because you didn't want to offend someone? Being nice is often misunderstood in today's society. From a young age, we are taught to be polite, agreeable, and considerate. These are important values, and kindness is certainly a strength, but somewhere along the way, the concept of being nice has been distorted. It has become more about appeasing others than staying true to ourselves. Being nice has too often come to mean being silent when something bothers us, staying in uncomfortable situations just to keep the peace, and putting others' needs before our own to the point of exhaustion. Many people believe that being nice means always saying yes, never causing discomfort, and constantly going out of their way to make others happy. The problem with this version of niceness is that it can lead to a life of resentment, burnout, and emotional suppression. People who strive to be nice all the time often suppress their own opinions, desires, and even their boundaries. They fear that by standing up for themselves or disagreeing, they will be seen as difficult, unkind, or selfish. As a result, they end up agreeing to things they don't want to do, tolerating behavior that hurts them, and hiding their true feelings just to avoid conflict. But real kindness doesn't require us to abandon ourselves. In fact, true kindness must include kindness to ourselves. When we are genuinely kind, we are respectful, honest, and empathetic, but we are also clear about who we are, what we need, and what we stand for. It is not kind to allow someone to mistreat us without consequence. It is not kind to continue giving when we are emotionally or mentally depleted. And it is certainly not kind to encourage unhealthy behavior in others by enabling it with silence or fake smiles. Being nice in the misunderstood sense often leads to being taken for granted. People start to expect that you'll always say yes, always help, always be available, regardless of your own circumstance. When you consistently prioritize others over yourself, you teach people that your time, your energy, and even your dignity are not valuable. Over time, this damages your self-esteem, your relationships, and your sense of identity. You begin to feel invisible or unappreciated, not because people are inherently bad, but because you've taught them that your boundaries don't need to be respected. There's also a significant difference between being nice and being good. Being good is about doing what is right, even when it's hard. It's about telling the truth, holding others accountable, and sometimes saying no when everyone expects a yes. Being good requires courage and integrity. Being nice, when misunderstood, can sometimes mean sacrificing those very qualities for the sake of approval. You may avoid conflict, but you also avoid growth. You may keep relationships intact, but at the cost of your authenticity. In the end, the goal should not be to be seen as nice by everyone. The goal should be to live with honesty, compassion, and strength, even if that means not everyone will like you. It's okay to disappoint people if it means staying true to yourself. It's okay to speak up, to walk away, to set limits. You are not unkind for protecting your peace. You are not mean for valuing your time. You are not selfish for saying no. Being misunderstood as nice is a trap that keeps people small. But when you break free from it, when you redefine niceness to include truth, boundaries, and self-respect, you become not just likable, but powerful, respected, and free. People-pleasing is often seen as a harmless or even admirable trait, a way to maintain harmony, avoid conflict, and be liked by others. But beneath the surface, it carries a dangerous cost. When you constantly prioritize others' needs, desires, and feelings above your own, you begin to disappear. Over time, people-pleasing leads to self-erasure, a slow and painful process where your identity, voice, and worth begin to fade in the background of everyone else's expectations. It usually begins with small compromises, saying yes to something you don't want to do, avoiding difficult conversations, pretending to agree when you don't. These moments might feel like kindness or flexibility, and occasionally they are. But when this becomes your pattern, when your automatic response is to suppress your truth to make someone else comfortable, you begin losing the ability to recognize and honor your own needs. You become so focused on avoiding disapproval and making others happy that you stop asking yourself what you actually want. As this behavior continues, your sense of self starts to weaken. You might find it hard to make decisions without someone else's input. You may notice that you have no idea what your own boundaries are, or worse, that you're afraid to enforce them. You're so used to keeping the peace that any expression of conflict or assertion feels like a threat to your very identity. You might even feel guilty for having needs at all because you've trained yourself to believe that everyone else comes first. This erasure of self isn't just emotional, it's psychological. You begin to live your life as a reflection of others' preferences, not as the author of your own story. You become skilled at reading the room, adjusting your tone, and being what others want you to be, while forgetting who you truly are when no one's watching. The more you shape yourself to meet external expectations, the more disconnected you become from your inner truth. People-pleasing also breeds resentment. On the surface, you may appear agreeable and easygoing, but underneath, you often carry frustration and exhaustion. You feel drained from constantly giving, from constantly performing, and yet you feel stuck because the fear of disappointing others feels more terrifying than the pain of disappointing yourself. Over time, this resentment can turn into bitterness, anxiety, and even depression as you realize that the version of yourself others love isn't really you. It's the version you created to be accepted. Relationships built on people-pleasing are often one-sided and fragile. They are not built on mutual respect or authenticity, but on the unspoken agreement that you will keep everyone happy at your own expense. When you finally do try to set a boundary or say no, people may react with confusion or anger, not because you're doing something wrong, but because you've trained them to expect your constant compliance. The more you erase yourself, the harder it becomes to reclaim your place. Reversing self-erasure means recognizing that your needs, feelings, and boundaries are just as important as anyone else's. It means accepting that not everyone will like you and learning to be okay with that. It means honoring your truth even when it's uncomfortable and trusting that real connection only happens when you're showing up as your full, unapologetic self. It's not selfish to protect your energy, to speak honestly, or to put yourself first sometimes. In fact, it's essential. People-pleasing may win short-term approval, but it steals long-term peace. And the more you chase validation from others, the further you drift from the validation that really matters, the kind that comes from within. Reclaiming your voice, your worth, and your identity is not an act of rebellion. It is an act of survival. And it starts with the brave decision to stop pleasing others and start honoring yourself. Saying no is one of the most powerful and underrated forms of self-respect. It is a boundary in action, a declaration that your time, energy, and well-being matter. Yet for many people, saying no feels uncomfortable, even wrong. We fear we'll seem selfish, rude, or ungrateful. We worry about disappointing others, damaging relationships, or facing conflict. But in truth, learning to say no with confidence and clarity is not just a communication skill. It's a deep form of self-care and personal integrity. When you say yes to things that drain you, that go against your values, or that you simply don't have the capacity for, you're not being generous. You're abandoning yourself. Every time you agree to something out of guilt, fear, or obligation, a small piece of your freedom is compromised. Over time, these small compromises accumulate, leaving you feeling overextended, resentful, and emotionally depleted. You may smile on the outside, but inside, you're stretched too thin, giving more than you have to offer. Saying no is not a rejection of the person making the request. It's an affirmation of your own limits. Everyone has limits, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. And ignoring them doesn't make you strong or kind. It makes you vulnerable to burnout, resentment, and even a loss of self-identity. Saying no is how you protect your time for the things that truly matter. It's how you create space in your life for rest, creativity, and meaningful relationships. Respecting yourself means understanding what is right for you and what is not. It means pausing to check in with yourself before giving an answer. Do you actually want to do this? Do you have the capacity? Does it align with your priorities? If the answer is no, then the most respectful thing you can do for yourself is to honor that answer, even if it's difficult. Saying no might disappoint someone else in the short term, but it prevents you from disappointing yourself in the long run. There's also a deeper message behind every no. It says, I know myself. It tells the world that you're not going to betray your needs just to be liked. It signals that your life is not up for negotiation every time someone else wants something from you. It establishes your boundaries and teaches others how to treat you. People may not always like your no, but they will come to respect it. And more importantly, they will come to respect you. Ironically, saying no also allows your yes to carry more weight. When you only say yes to what you truly believe in or want to do, your presence, energy, and effort become more meaningful. You are no longer agreeing out of pressure or fear, but from a place of intention. People begin to trust your word because they know it comes from sincerity, not people-pleasing. You become more authentic, more grounded, and more at peace with yourself. It's important to remember that saying no doesn't require you to be harsh or cold. You can say no with grace and kindness. You don't owe long explanations or apologies for protecting your peace. A simple, respectful no is enough. And with practice, it becomes easier because every time you say no to what doesn't serve you, you say yes to what does. Saying no is not about closing yourself off. It's about opening up space for what truly aligns with your values, your goals, and your well-being. It is a profound act of self-respect, and it's one of the first steps to building a life that feels whole, authentic, and truly your own. Not everyone deserves your energy. That statement might sound harsh at first, but it is one of the most important truths you can embrace in a world that constantly demands your attention, time, and emotional labor. Your energy is limited. It's one of the most valuable resources you have, more valuable than money, more precious than possessions. Where you invest it determines the quality of your life, your relationships, and your peace of mind. When you give too much of it to the wrong people, you rob yourself of the clarity, strength, and space you need to grow. We're often taught to be available to everyone, to respond to every message, meet every demand, support every friend, and forgive every offense. We're told that being a good person means being endlessly patient, endlessly understanding, endlessly giving. But the reality is that not everyone has good intentions. Not everyone respects your time. Not everyone supports your growth. And not everyone deserves a front row seat in your life. There are people who only reach out when they need something, who drain you with negativity, who disregard your boundaries, or who use your kindness as a weakness. When you consistently pour energy into people who give nothing back, or worse, who take advantage of your generosity, you're engaging in a one-sided exchange that slowly depletes your emotional well-being. Over time, this kind of imbalance creates resentment, exhaustion, and even self-doubt. You begin to question your worth, not because of who you are, but because you've been giving your best to those who don't value it. Protecting your energy means being selective with your presence. It means recognizing who genuinely adds value to your life and who only takes from it. It's not about judging others harshly or cutting people off with no compassion. It's about honoring yourself enough to walk away from relationships that consistently leave you feeling worse, not better. It's about understanding that you don't owe anyone constant access to you, especially if that access is being misused. Some people are simply not ready to meet you with the same level of respect and care that you offer. That doesn't make them bad, but it does mean you need to be careful. If someone repeatedly crosses your boundaries, drains your peace, or brings chaos into your life, continuing to give them your energy is not compassion, it's self-neglect. It's okay to love people from a distance. It's okay to set limits with those who can't or won't respect your value. It's okay to say, this is no longer healthy for me, and step away. You have the right to protect your space, your heart, and your mental health. And doing so doesn't make you selfish. It makes you strong. In fact, the more you protect your energy, the more you can show up fully for the people and things that truly matter. When you're not constantly drained by drama, manipulation, or emotional labor, you have more to give to the relationships that are genuine, supportive, and reciprocal. Not everyone is meant to stay in your life. Some people are lessons, others are blessings. The wisdom lies in knowing the difference. When you stop giving your energy to those who don't deserve it, you make room for those who do. You attract healthier connections, clearer conversations, and deeper peace. You begin to thrive, not survive. So remind yourself daily, your energy is sacred. Spend it wisely. Not everyone deserves it. And that's not cruel. That's clarity. Choosing authenticity over approval is one of the most liberating decisions a person can make. It means deciding that being true to yourself matters more than being liked, accepted, or validated by others. In a world that constantly encourages conformity, where people are pressured to fit in, follow trends, and suppress their individuality, authenticity becomes a quiet rebellion. It is not easy, but it is essential for living a life that is meaningful, honest, and free. From a young age, many people learn that approval from others brings rewards. You get praised for being agreeable, for making others comfortable, for following rules and expectations, even if those rules don't align with who you really are. Over time, this shapes how you present yourself. You begin to filter your words, shrink your personality, and hide parts of your identity to gain acceptance. The more you do this, the more you lose touch with your real self. You're no longer expressing who you are. You're performing who others want you to be. This constant chase for approval may bring short-term comfort, but it creates long-term emptiness. You might be surrounded by people who like you, but they like the version of you that isn't fully real. Deep down, you know that the connection is built on a mask, not on truth. You may feel anxious, drained, or resentful because you're spending so much time and energy maintaining an image that pleases others. Worse, you may start to believe that your true self isn't good enough to be loved or accepted. Authenticity changes everything. When you choose to live authentically, you start showing up as you are, without pretending, without performing, without constantly asking, will they like me if I say this? You express your real thoughts, values, and emotions even when they're unpopular. You honor your needs and boundaries even when they disappoint others. You live in alignment with your inner truth rather than external approval. This doesn't mean being blunt or inconsiderate. Authenticity is not an excuse for cruelty or disregard. It's about honesty with compassion. It's about showing up with integrity, owning your story, and being brave enough to risk rejection, in order to be real. And yes, there will be people who don't like it. Some may pull away, some may criticize, but those who remain, those who truly see and accept you, are the people worth keeping. When you stop living for approval, you reclaim your power. You are no longer at the mercy of opinions, trends, or expectations. You begin to trust yourself more deeply. You feel more grounded, more confident, and more at peace. Decisions become clearer because you're no longer trying to guess what others want. You're simply asking, what is true for me? Authenticity also attracts authenticity. When you are real, you give others permission to be real too. Your honesty inspires deeper connections. Your vulnerability invites trust. You start to build relationships based on who you really are, not who you pretend to be. These connections are fewer perhaps, but far more meaningful. Choosing authenticity over approval is a daily practice. It requires courage. It requires letting go of the need to please everyone. But in doing so, you gain something far more valuable: your freedom, your identity, and your self-respect. You stop living a life shaped by fear and start living a life shaped by truth. At the end of the day, approval fades. Trends change, opinions shift, but authenticity endures. Because when you are true to yourself, you can look in the mirror and say, "This is me, and I am enough." Kindness is a beautiful and powerful quality, but when it exists without boundaries, it can quickly become a weakness rather than a strength. Many people associate kindness with being endlessly available, agreeable, and self-sacrificing. They believe being kind means always saying yes, never upsetting others, and putting everyone's needs ahead of their own. But real kindness is not about losing yourself to please others. Real kindness, when combined with clear boundaries, becomes a force of strength, self-respect, and genuine care. Without boundaries, kindness often turns into people-pleasing. You may find yourself constantly doing favors, saying yes when you want to say no, or tolerating mistreatment just to avoid. On the surface, it looks like generosity, but underneath, it's a form of self-abandonment. You begin to stretch yourself too thin, giving away your time and energy in ways that leave you drained, resentful, or invisible. Eventually, you're not being kind because you want to be. You're being kind because you feel you have to be. And that's not kindness. That's fear disguised as generosity. Boundaries are the limits you set to protect your well-being emotionally, mentally, and physically. They are not walls that shut people out, but filters that help you decide what's healthy to let in. When you pair kindness with boundaries, you can show compassion without losing yourself. You can offer support without becoming someone's emotional dumping ground. You can be generous without being exploited. Boundaries don't make you cold or unkind. They make your kindness sustainable. One of the most empowering things you can do is say, "I care about you, but I can't take this on right now." Or, "I want to help, but I need to take care of myself first." That is kindness with boundaries. It honors both your compassion and your capacity. It teaches others that your time and energy are valuable, and it sets a clear expectation for how you want to be treated. People might not like it at first, especially if they're used to your constant availability, but over time, they will either adjust or distance themselves, and either outcome protects your peace. Kindness with boundaries also leads to healthier relationships. When you're constantly overextending yourself, people may come to rely on you in unhealthy ways. They may expect you to always solve their problems, never say no, and tolerate behavior that crosses your limits. This creates imbalance and dependency. But when you assert your boundaries, you shift the dynamic. You encourage mutual respect. You make it clear that kindness is a choice, not an obligation, and that your generosity has limits. This fosters trust, equality, and respect, qualities that build lasting, meaningful connections. Another important aspect of kindness with boundaries is self-kindness. Often we're taught to be kind to others, but we forget to extend that same compassion inward. Being kind to yourself means listening to your needs, respecting your limits, and not feeling guilty for putting yourself first when necessary. You can't pour from an empty cup. When you protect your own energy and well-being, you're in a much better position to show up for others in a way that's healthy and wholehearted. Ultimately, kindness without boundaries can lead to burnout and bitterness, but kindness with boundaries leads to empowerment and authenticity. It allows you to give from a place of wholeness rather than depletion. It helps you show up for others without disappearing in the process. And it teaches the world that you are both compassionate and strong, someone who can be loving without being taken for granted. So be kind, be compassionate, be generous, but never forget to set boundaries. Because when your kindness is backed by self-respect, it becomes not just a gift to others, but a powerful expression of who you truly are. True strength is often misunderstood. Many people associate strength with physical toughness, emotional detachment, or the ability to power through hardship without breaking. Society glorifies the image of the unshakable individual who never shows weakness, never complains, and always gets the job done. But in reality, the deepest and most transformative kind of strength comes not from pushing through pain or proving yourself to others. It comes from honoring yourself. Self-honor is the act of recognizing your own worth, respecting your boundaries, and choosing to live in alignment with your truth even when it's difficult or unpopular. Honoring yourself means listening to your inner voice rather than drowning it out with noise from the world. It's about knowing when to say no, when to walk away, and when to stand up for what you believe in, even if others don't understand. It's choosing rest when you're tired, speaking up when something feels wrong, and making choices that nourish your soul, not because they make sense to everyone else, but because they make sense to you. Self-honor is not ego or arrogance. It doesn't mean thinking you're better than others. It means understanding that your feelings, needs, and values matter just as much as anyone else's. It means refusing to abandon yourself to gain acceptance, approval, or validation. So many people live their lives trying to be what others want them to be, bending, shrinking, performing, just to feel loved or seen. But in doing so, they betray themselves. They sacrifice authenticity for safety. And slowly, they forget who they are. It takes real strength to go the other way, to stay grounded in who you are, even when the world is pushing you to change. To say, I will not compromise my integrity for comfort. To choose the hard path of growth over the easy path of pleasing others. That's not weakness. That's courage. That's power. Because when you honor yourself, you stop being a passive participant in your life and start becoming its author. Self-honor also means embracing your flaws, your mistakes, and your humanity. It's not about being perfect. It's about being real. It's having the strength to say, I'm still learning, or I made a mistake, but I forgive myself. It's letting go of shame and guilt that serve no purpose and choosing self-compassion instead. When you honor yourself, you treat yourself with the same kindness and dignity you'd offer to someone you love. You stop being your own harshest critic and start becoming your greatest ally. This kind of inner strength creates a ripple effect. When you honor yourself, you naturally begin to expect more from the world around you. You stop settling for relationships, jobs, and situations that don't reflect your worth. You start building a life that feels true, not just impressive on the outside, but deeply fulfilling on the inside. And people notice. They see that you walk with confidence, not because you're pretending to be invincible, but because you're rooted in self-respect. True strength is not about how much you can endure without breaking. It's about how deeply you can stay connected to yourself, even in the face of pressure, fear, or doubt. It's about protecting your peace, honoring your truth, and choosing self-loyalty over self-sacrifice. That kind of strength doesn't shout. It doesn't need to. It speaks for itself, quietly, steadily, powerfully, in the way you live, the choices you make, and the love you give to yourself every single day,